I'd like to call this meeting to order. Would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Trustee Gray?
Present.
Trustee Caprio?
Present.
Trustee Knights-Bicharski?
Present.
Trustee Suisse?
Present.
Trustee Rogers is absent. And Trustee Baird is absent. Mayor Yukich?
Present. Okay. Are there any amendments to the agenda? Next. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the October 10th, 2018 Village Board meeting?
So moved.
Trustee Gray.
I'll second.
Please, discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
I'll abstain.
Reports and communications from the mayor and other officers. I'll go first on it. Tree lighting ceremony. Please join Santa in the village of Homer Glen on Saturday, December 1st from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Homer Glen Village Hall as we light the village tree and kick off the holiday season. Festivities will include photos with Santa, holiday crafts, Christmas hayride, live music, and refreshments. For more information, please visit www.homerglenil.org. We'll go to the trustees. We'll start with Trustee Gray.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of the Public Service Safety Committee, I have 3 things to report. Public Service and Safety Committee would like to remind all residents about safely decorating their houses. More than a third of home decoration fires are started by candles. 42% of decoration fires happen because decorations are placed too close to a heat source. Following a few simple tips will ensure a happy and healthy and safe holiday season. We've put 2 holiday safety information sheets up on the website and on the Facebook page, so residents are encouraged to go there, visit there, and download those. Next, I have, remember that I just want to remind all the residents that there is a parking ban on all village streets within a 12-hour period immediately following a snowfall of 2 inches or more unless the street has been cleared. If your vehicle is found to be illegally parked, it may be towed and or ticketed. If you have any questions about snow plowing during snow season, please feel free to contact the Homer Township Highway Department. It's 708-301-0246. And lastly, the Chicago Bears, Jewel Osco, and Salvation Army have kicked off their annual coat drive. Partnership, now in its 30th year, collects coats throughout the region for the Salvation Army clients in need. Chicago winters can be miserable for everyone, but some people, they are life-threatening. It may seem like a small thing, but when you donate a coat to someone in need, you are truly making a difference. Last year, more than 21,000 coats were collected, along with hundreds of hats, gloves, scarves, and snowsuits. This year, the goal is 25,000 coats. The coat drive runs November 6th through February 1st. New and gently used coats and winter accessories can be dropped off in any Chicago and Jewel Osco locations. Coats for children and women are in the greatest demand. During our new business period of our meeting tonight, I will be asking the board for the board's support to locate a winter coat donation drop box in the village hall. And I just want to remind everybody that Toys for Tots donations will be accepted at Homer Township Fire District Station 1 at 160th and Cedar, now through December 3rd, and also at the Northwest Homer Fire District, all stations, now through December 22nd. And that concludes my report.
I would like to add one thing to yours, just real quick. When he was talking about snow removal, you also have to remember, you can't shovel your driveway and throw it back in the street, because they can give you a ticket for it. It ices up quicker. So if you're snowing or you're snow blowing or you're plowing, whatever the case may be, don't throw it right back on the street, please. So,
They shouldn't put it on my driveway.
wait till they go down that.
With that, I have no report.
Thank you. Trustee Suisse?
I have no report this evening.
Trustee Caprio?
Well, the only report what I would have is on our discussion items tonight, and that's the 2019 Homerfest, which we're still working on. But the dates, we hope, will be set at some point for certain from June 20th through the 23rd, once we get all of our ducks in a row. And that will conclude my report.
Trustee Caprio. Village Treasurer.
Mayor, I don't have a report tonight, but if you have any questions regarding the Treasurer's report under Section H4, Consent Agenda, I'd be happy to answer them. It's the report for the 6-month mark of the fiscal year. Thank you.
That confused me. I always said it was That's true. Okay, Village Clerk.
Two things, briefly. The 2019 renewal forms have gone out to the village businesses. Over 550 businesses within the village will be receiving the renewal applications for their registrations. And secondly, the Alexandros Gatsis Family Benefit Fundraiser being held at Ruby Agave. I'm pleased to announce that the Homer Area Chamber of Commerce has stepped up to sponsor the event, and we've already received several donations for the silent auction, and that is December 5th, beginning at 7 p.m., and I hope everybody can make it.
Thank you. Village Attorney.
No report, Your Honor.
Public Safety Officials.
Just a quick one, Your Honor.
Thanks, sir. Just a reminder to our residents that, with it getting dark earlier, don't be afraid to call us if you have solicitors at any time, day and night. They have to have a permit. If there's a question if they have a permit or not, don't be afraid to notify the sheriff's office. We'll be glad to check that out. And these days, it's a way to check and see if somebody's home or if they're not home. Anything suspicious at all, don't be afraid to call us. And also with the icy roads and inclement weather, just a reminder for everybody to slow down, take your time. It's better to get there late than to get injured on the way. And that's all I've got, Mayor.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Village Manager.
No report.
Public comment. This one. John Coy. Miscellaneous, huh?
How's everybody doing? Pretty good, I guess. Right? Hey, 2 questions, that's it. One would be to John here. Whatever happened, which I never did hear anything about it, with this something that own the properties on 143rd, north of 143rd on Bell Road, that we've been paying them about $60,000 or 100 and some thousand a year. Their contract was supposed to be up. So
Yes, it was. It is up. We paid the last payment last December, I believe. We were making biannual payments. It was an incentive agreement for them to come into the village. They were not in the village. They were sales tax producing, so it was a win-win. With that agreement's completely paid in full now.
in other words, we're not spending that $60 to $100 and some thousand dollars.
Not anymore.
It
It's fully funded.
All right. I wondered because nobody ever said anything about it. There was never anything in the paper, so I didn't know what was going on.
That's one of the meetings you missed.
Pardon?
That's one of the meetings that you missed.
Mr. President, you got to turn on your mic.
No, President.
Okay, the next question is, which would probably be to Mike, going down Bell Road, going in the winter again. Last winter I asked, there is a path from the strip mall with the bank on the corner, which would be what, about 147th in Bell Road. Then you got Pelican Harry's and all of them. There's a sidewalk out in front there. Then the sidewalk goes in front of ComEd. Now where the new strip or the mall is there, I guess you'd call it a mall. It's stores. Is there going to be a sidewalk to continue along there? It stops right at the new street they just put in.
I know that there's a bike trail that continues through their site, and that's what our bike trail tied into. I don't believe there's going to be any specific sidewalk around there. I have to check the plans. But I think there's various parking lots and whatever, to get into the stores. So.
Right, that's to get into their stores, but what if you want to go across the street, or the kids are on their bikes and they go down and then they're going to cross the street, where they have to go through the other, around all the stores and jockey around there and then.
Well, John, are you talking between the monument sign and Shell?
Yes.
Along the front of
Right.
Bell Road?
Right, because they just put that new driveway in, coming out on Bell for them stores, the new stores. Now, from that driveway to Shell gas station, there's no sidewalk in there. And to me, if you're gonna hit the sidewalk and even the people from behind the bank in Pelican Harry's there, that strip mall, you have the senior residencies. And like they say, it's nice if you could just walk and that sidewalk was complete. In the summertime to walk it, to get to whatever they want over there, McDonald's or, whatever, or just any one of their stores.
I know, well, the county is going to be reconstructing all that intersection, both Bell Road and 143rd Street, and they're going to be reconstructing 143rd Street all the way down to Lamont Road. So I know we've had discussions about potential for sidewalk in the sections on Bell Road, and there are other sections we will certainly be looking into.
Yeah, because like I say, everybody keeps saying you're all for sidewalks and everything I see going in new. I haven't seen sidewalks except for maybe 10% of them, and it's like, well, this doesn't, especially with, like you say, you get the seniors and they got their little drag behind, and they say, yeah, then we got to drag it through the, the grass, the mud, the dirt and everything just to get down there. But anyway, it'd be nice if we got that sidewalk put in, because if I'm not mistaken, if that sidewalk is put in, IDOT comes along, or whoever's going to put the new street in, they have to replace what they tear up. That's the way it used to be. If there's something there, they have to replace it.
Some of them are more costs, but we'll look into that.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Next is the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered routine by the village board and will be enacted by one motion. If there is a motion to approve the following items. 1, accounts payable for the period of from November 16th to November 29th, 2018 in the amount of $486,086.37. 2, the mayor's reappointments of Coordinator John Robinson and members Ron Schell, Amal Centers, David Kervikis, Bill Lionhood, Jim Riley, Steve Spear, Adrian Byrne, Jim Kinstead, Regina Robinson, and Sam Scapellato to the Village's Emergency Management Agency through May 31st, 2019. 3, the July 11, 2018 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. And 4, the Treasurer's report of cash and investments for the period ending October 31st, 2018.
So moved.
A second.
Trustee Gray, Trustee Capper, discussion? Okay. Madam Clerk, introduce all of them.
Trustee Cabrio?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Nasky-Turkey?
Aye.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, we need a motion to approve the professional planning services fee proposed by GreenbergFarrow in the amount not to exceed $6,000.
So moved.
Trustee Trokey,
Second.
Trustee Gray, discussion.
So just to recap, this is just to help us get through some personnel periods, right?
That is correct. It's for approximate period not to exceed 2 to 3 months. Gives us the time period to reevaluate the planner position, what are the responsibilities of that position, and advertise and get it filled. So it's just a short-term batch.
And they're going to expand their scope of basic services, since we don't really need landscape plan review. They are going to be like our assistant planner, the same jobs.
Yes, they are. I spoke directly with them on the phone, and they indicated that is the case. It is planning in particular. And I'll give you an example. I talked to BJ Gotti earlier today. The planning consultant is needed to assist in the review of development projects, zoning cases, outdoor lighting plans, appeals to exterior materials, and building sign permits for compliance with zoning regulations. So that would be a traditional planner who will be helping us.
So does that mean, because previously we've had, why are they doing the lighting plan? Because we've had Farnsworth doing that. So are they taking that over?
I wouldn't expect them to take over. If it is something that Farnsworth is already doing, then we would continue to have Farnsworth do that.
I guess the only question I have is, this is for a period of 2 to 3 months, correct?
Yes,
How do we base that? I mean,
that's the approximate time period. I mean, I think we're going to be able to fill the position in about 2 months. I'll defer to Heather.
but they're obligated up to 3.
Up to 2 to 3 months and not to exceed. And if we, for some reason, got very busy and got near that $6,000, then I would be coming back to you to increase that dollar amount.
I think that's what my question was.
Got it.
I didn't ask for that.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Manifold-Sharkey?
Aye.
Trustee Sweet?
Aye.
Trustee Sabriya?
Aye.
Motion carries. Next, motion to approve change order request number 1, number 2, and number 3 for the Heritage Park active core renovations.
I so move.
Is there a second?
Are you splitting that up? I thought you were going to recall. Do we have different things?
Mike, is that something, do we want to hold off on the second one with that change order 8 with the 25,000?
Well, change order 8, we had discussions, today was the bi-weekly progress meeting. So I did bring up ask some questions regarding the various change orders. Just to kind of give a little bit of a summary on.
Can I interrupt? We just need a motion to discuss it first.
Right, I was waiting for a motion so we can get into discussions.
Okay.
All right, well, we've got the...
Well, what are we motioning on? Are we
Well, all
splitting?
right, here,
We're splitting
what I'll do
motions.
is I'll read
Advanced.
out the rest of them because we're going to have to address one at a time.
Let's motion to just discuss it.
I think right now, the motion that's out there is just simply the request 1, 2, and 3 for the Heritage Park renovations. I think the only thing we left off is the amount of $18,161.
Which is request number 8.
No, that's one.
Phil.
That's another separate.
That's an entirely separate matter.
So we are splitting. Okay.
Oh, because
Right now, it's still ready to be split.
So, first one,
1, 2, and 3.
the request for additional materials and labor associated with the installation of handrails at the pavilion. The change was necessitated by building code requirements. Change order number 2, the request for landscaping earthwork costs associated with tree removal and transplanting. The trees that were installed at the conclusion of the Heritage Park Phase 1 around Heritage Circle when interfering with the active core project. Some of the trees were transplanted to Goodings Grove Park, and the remaining trees are being kept near the maintenance shed awaiting future transportation. And that was for $6,046. Then the last one is the request for a change in landscaping specification as well as stone backfill necessitated by drainage issues and utility installation. At the October 17th construction update meeting, Integral Construction notified TRIA and the village via the change order request. Number 8, well, that's not going to, we're not addressing it. So for just 1, 2, and 3 right now, Comments?
Well,
We need a
We have a
second.
motion, we need a
I'll
second.
second.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, I guess, well, you can finish your thought if you'd like first.
All right, yeah, let's,
I just want to, my biggest concern is I asked staff today, and I've asked staff in the past, what processes and procedures we're following for not only change order requests where they feel it's just a pre-approved work, rather than a change order request. Anne Marie and I had this conversation today. And I also want to get clarification on original versus copies of things like certified payroll as well as waiver of liens. And so I just wanted to open up for discussion on that. And then that dovetails into the information that's missing that, so that's why I sort of wanted to get into discussion. So those are my two
So,
concerns.
Mayor, if I could start with the summary addressing some of Trustee Caprio's comments. So first of all, in regards to why this is coming before the board. So from my perspective, if I look at this project critically, I look at construction projects of having a base bid, and then usually there's a contingency built in. And my understanding with this project is basically about $200,000. Anytime there is a cost that goes above that base, my understanding, and especially in consulting with the village attorney, is that you as the elected body are responsible for approving that. So therefore, the language you see in these are change orders, change order 1, 2, and 3, and then this $25,000 item which would be taken care of separately. So I think fundamentally, when this project was begun, after speaking with TRIA, I think TRIA viewed that $200,000 as part of the project, and whenever there was a cost, they would draw it down. Now, we're here tonight because we want clear direction from the board whether my interpretation is correct of viewing these as change orders that need to come before you each and every time. So Mike can clearly articulate what change orders 1, 2, and 3 are. So that's part 1. So part 2 then, my conversation with Trustee Caprio centered then on the payouts. So these are the payouts that we've had 3 payouts to Integral or to TRIA for the Active Core project. And these, for the sake of the audience, come before Administration and Finance Committee as a recommendation that comes to the board. So with the first payout that we had on this project, it was recommended by the committee and then ultimately approved by the board to not require those waivers as before the check was issued. Subsequently, since payout number 2 and payout number 3, those waivers have been required. So payout number 1, the check has been issued to the contractor. Payout number 2, the check has been issued to the contractor. Payout number 3, the village is holding it until we receive those waivers. That has not happened as of yet. Per conversations this afternoon, the recommendation I would make to this board and the direction that I've heard from some of you individually is you do not feel comfortable releasing that check until the village is in receipt of those original waivers, all the original documentation, which we will do moving forward. So we would not release check number 3 until we have all that documentation, the original documentation from us. Typically what would happen is Integral would submit those waivers and they would be reviewed by TRIA. And TRIA then would say to the village, yes, they've completed and they've satisfied the requirements, and then those would be submitted to village staff. So what we're going to do differently moving forward, if this is so the direction of the board, is we would require TRIA would still go through that process, but then they would physically have to provide the original waivers to us before the village would release the check. We are also going to go back in time and require that all the original waivers, all the original documentation for payout number 1 and payout number 2 be provided to the village, so that the village clerk and the village in general has all those original documentation. So if there's ever any question of do we have, has everything been processed properly, we will have all the original documents. Moving forward, any of the other payouts, if so directed, if this is a direction from the board tonight, we would also require all those original documents to be provided to the village prior to the payouts, prior to those checks being issued, Integral construction. So that's kind of a summary. That's a long-winded answer to, I think, 2 of the points or 2 of the questions you raised earlier, Trustee Caprio.
Thank you.
And we're still missing some on 1 and 2, so it should be held for until we have everything up to date and we have the originals.
We can
The
do that.
Copies don't count. All right, so,
I would also like to make a request that, I noticed that trustee Burien and trustee Rogers was copied on these. Being the chairman for the Parks Committee, I feel that I should definitely be on here. But if I'm in it, we might as well just have all of the trustees, so we all have notification of this prior to our packet is given to us. And if
Absolutely.
there's any further meetings amongst TRIA and any other trustees, I feel that we should all be notified in advance.
and plus it should be made public to where anyone that wants to go to these meetings can go to these meetings.
That would be, I think, a question that's a direction from the board. Typically, what I can tell you, in the other municipalities I've served, typically those construction meetings are handled at the staff level because it allows us the ability to go through the project. We have had 2 trustees that have been sitting in that meeting. If you do make it a public meeting, it will change the tenor of those meetings as far as how some of those meetings are handled.
And I understand that, and I understand that trustee Rogers and Burien were both on A&F before, and now that Rogers has moved to the parks, but since I've been on the parks, I feel like I should be notified, so if all 3 of us have to sit there, then we have to make it a public meeting.
I understand, I mean, the other possibility, and this would be something for you to discuss with the mayor, is perhaps, I mean, you can have 2 trustees attend that meeting without it being a public meeting. Who those 2 trustees are is up to the elected officials. If you want to have it a public meeting, we'll have it a public meeting.
But I don't see, since you and trustee Rogers is on parks, then I don't understand Brian Varian, you know,
He's
why
on
is-
A&F.
He's not on
He's not on
A&F. No, he's on CEE, right, he's not on A&F. So that's why I was kind of curious too, because we just found out, you know, these meetings, about these meetings, so, or it should alternate, so trustees can see what's going on, you know, alternate.
Absolutely.
Or at least get updated.
Yeah, or at least get
Alternate
updated or
too.
something, yeah.
And just as a background, so, and I'm gonna look to Mike to correct me if I misstate this, these 3, what they called RFPs, 1, 2, and 3, as well as the $25,000 for change order number 8, were discussed literally 2 weeks ago. After that meeting, I put in a call to the village attorney because I raised the question at the meeting as we started to get into these costs. I'm like, who has the authority here to approve this? Because I had already read the purchasing policy and did not believe that any of us, whether it was an elected official or an appointed official, had that authority. Because when I look at these 1, 2, and 3, I'm not looking at them individually. I'm looking at them collectively and what is the total. So then based upon the consultation with the village attorney, I decided to add these to this agenda. So I don't even think this went through A&F because this went so quickly, is that when I recognize that these are indeed change orders, in my mind, that has to come to you for approval. So you saw these, this hasn't been around very long, you're seeing these pretty fresh. So as soon as we get this, as long as my interpretation is correct, that I'm viewing these as change orders, if you view these as change orders, when we get these, we'll bring these either directly to this group, or we can route them through A&F, whatever direction you so provide.
Well, I think it's important to view them as change orders personally. Just because if we give them a not to exceed $200,000, I will guarantee you that at the end of the change orders, the price will be $200,000. I would much rather see them individually. It's a little more work on our part, but it's better due diligence, and I just think it's more prudent that we know that. So.
And I have questions on the change orders too, like say for example, and since I was not part of any of the meetings, so maybe this is a basic question, but like say for example on change order 1, where they're talking about handrails for the pavilion, you would think when they were doing the architecture on that, that would be automatically, okay, if it's that high up, you're going to need some, and now we're being charged a change order. Doesn't seem right.
And I'm going to ask our Development Services Director or our Building Director to explain, because I think this was a direct outgrowth from the building.
Yeah, initially when this project started, we didn't have the plans, the detailed final plans for the project to review, and it was found later on, once we had gotten the plans and the project was already, I believe, out for bid, and the bid was accepted. And then it took some time to do some design of the handrails and what was actually required. So that took a little bit of time also.
The other thing I'd point out too is regardless of whether it is a situation where, oh, somebody else should pay for this because there should have been handrails, bottom line is regardless of whether or not the handrails were included on those architectural plans before or after, you had to pay for handrails. it was going to be, if these had been included in the architectural plans, the contract would have been higher by this amount.
This amount.
Yeah.
Right, now that one.
Okay, and then let's say, okay, for number 2, okay, if, you know, it's my understanding that TRIA was involved in Heritage Park from the beginning. So how did these trees get planted in the wrong, you know, in front of active core, and then they had to get transplanted and taken out within a short period of time? You know, it's like in the case like this, we're being penalized for that.
Well, because I do believe, Sharon, in a few meetings you had asked these questions, are these trees in the way, they don't need to be removed, they don't. I remember you asking these questions, so it's kind of like being told one thing and then having to come back and repay for something we've already tried to make sure of.
And move some of them to put it gross, so we lost them. So these are the questions that I would have on the 2 is if I understand the handrails, no matter what you have to do, you have to supply them for to fill the safety codes. But when you come to the trees right now, that is something we didn't have to do if it was looked at in the first place. And from my understanding with some of this is we have one that's an observer, they observe, and the other one inspects. Well, who does what? Because you've got like 2 people.
What had occurred was obviously the trees that were installed there were part of the phase 1, the original Heritage Circle construction. Those were obviously originally on the approved plans for that project. They were installed by the landscaper for that project. Subsequently, when the design was prepared and went out for bid for the active core project, they, in addendum number 2 for that project, they noted that they needed to relocate 8 of those trees. And then subsequently, at some point, it turned into, I believe it was 19 trees that ended up being relocated. So I'm not exactly sure if that was that information was on the original plans for Heritage Circle, and that information was provided to TRIA. So I'm not sure if there was a change in the original design that required them to ultimately remove the 19 trees, because what was happening was as the contractor for the active circle or the active core project was working, they were getting closer and closer to those new trees, and ultimately if they didn't get relocated, they would have been damaged or destroyed. At that point there was a discussion and a decision was made by TRIA that multiple trees, the 19 trees, needed to be relocated.
I was just under the impression that we were paying TRIA to pretty much babysit all these contractors and make sure that they're putting things in the correct spots. We don't have to replace 19 trees or replace this or that, whatever it may be. I mean, this is just the beginning. I mean, how much further is this going to go, I guess? And what are we responsible for? And what are they responsible for? I guess I would like to see the description of who's responsible for what.
Well, it's my understanding they were contracted to manage the active core project, perform inspections. They perform observations on the work that's out there. So,
does that also include, like on page 2, there's some things that were not substantially completed. Would that include seeing those projects go to a substantially completed phase?
well, I mean, it is their responsibility to make sure that the construction is according to the approved plan, make sure that, as best as possible, the schedules are met. Obviously, there are certain things that are out of their control, weather, things of that
Weather,
nature.
yeah, we understand.
Well, with what Christine had said, I agree. I don't understand why they're asking us to pay for something when we didn't screw up. We paid the company to make sure everything was done correctly, and it's not being done correctly. So what are we going to step up?
Is that integral though, or is that TRIA? Because we're being requested to pay integral.
Well,
And I think what we might be discussing is that maybe it was TRIA's responsibility, which I don't think necessarily should hold up integral. If they paid their laborers and their transportation, all those things, these are legitimate costs and legitimate services that have been rendered. Maybe we have a case with TRIA at some future point, or, obviously we're not talking about them right now.
well, no matter how you look at it, with all 3 of them, there's mitigated damages. except for, I wouldn't say one would be in there because you would have to put the handrails on. Just
Oh, yeah,
So it's not a big deal. But then when you have the movement of the trees, if we paid someone, and I don't know who, I don't know who put the trees in, did they even look at the plans? And we have two companies that supposedly are looking at this, and one caught some of the stuff, they didn't catch the other, but it shouldn't come back and have, the village should have the responsibility to pay for it. This should be the responsibility of who messed up. I mean, if any of us that have a job, if you screw up and the customer comes in and looks at something and says, well, you owe me $5,000, because we fixed this clean, they don't pay it.
Right, all I'm saying is that I think we might be going after the wrong person.
But we haven't said of anyone who we're going after right now, because we don't know who screwed up. I'd like to know who screwed up and why you come to the village and asking us to give you more money for something when we've already paid it. We put it out there, whether it be Tria, whether it be Intergovernment, whether it be the landscaping company that we just got done talking about. I'm just trying to justify why they're coming to us for the money.
I mean, I know I had a baby and all, and I missed a few meetings, but I mean, who approved this anyways? Who approved them to, because I mean, like I said, I wasn't even notified that there was meetings going on, and I would like to know when someone makes a mistake such as this amount of dollar, I think we should all be notified, and, you know, it should be discussed amongst us in a meeting and say, this is what happened, this is what we need to do or should do, or, you know, it should be a discussion. I don't even know who approved this.
I agree.
Do you know?
No.
So we approved for trees to be, like, moved, relocated, but nobody knows who, you don't know who approved it.
Do we know who moved the trees in the first place?
And they were actually, what had occurred is because when it, like I said, originally the contract required or included the relocation and replanting of 8 trees, and then that turned into 19 trees. What we ultimately did to try to get this resolved is facilities manager John Robinson actually had his crew and his staff place the trailer over there. The contractor for Integral dug up the trees, put them on John's trailer. John relocated them to their facilities by the maintenance facilities there. Several of those trees they actually planted at the Goodings Grove Park. So,
But my question is, who approved it?
it was conversations back and forth
It just
between.
happened. We
Yes.
just took it amongst ourselves to do this, and now we have to fork over a bill.
No, I think what happens when we have the construction meetings, there are some of these changeovers, things have to be done. For example, the handrails. This has to be done. So Tria and probably staff will say, go ahead and do it and submit a change order.
So
And that's why-
staff would okay this?
Probably,
That's my
staff or Tria.
Okay.
And in terms of saying, okay, this has to be done, let's get it done, submit a change order. And that's why I think, as Anne Marie pointed out, it's important to get it to the board then, at that point to say, okay, this had to be done. Here was the cost. Now, you guys can take a look at it and say, is this something that should be paid through contingency? Because it was maybe unforeseen, or these things happen, or is it something that you look at it and say, who's responsible? Is there somebody that should be held? Is this something that somebody made a mistake, somebody screwed something up, and should we be held financially responsible? Obviously, it had to be done, but whose fault is it?
Well, we're going to run into those emergency situations all the time.
Exactly.
But we should be notating those situations so we can talk about it at the end of the project.
Correct. Exactly. But I think that anytime something like this comes up, you can't bring every change, or you can't simply say, hey, we need to get guardrail or handrails on here right now. Okay, let's get a special meeting so you can tell the board about what's going on. I think that you need to be able to be nimble enough to say, get the work done, and then we're going to sort out who's responsible for it at a later date.
What's the dollar amount that the staff is allowed to approve?
Well, the dollar amount is up in front of you today.
I mean, if you're going to tell me we need handrails at, $5,000, that's fine. But if you're going to tell me we need gold-plated handrails or something, you know what I'm saying? Like if it costs like $50,000, there's a big difference. So what's the dollar amount that they're allowed to approve without seeking permission from the board?
$200,000.
Well, no, it's not.
Well, what they should have done is real simple. They weren't going to change them that day in the first place. So they should have gotten a hold of someone here Because I don't know if I like the idea of someone else spending the village's money, because if Tria's going to go ahead, because someone mentioned that Tria said that, all right, go ahead and put in a change order. Well, if it's a change order, we have to look at it and see if we want to change it. And the lawyer said, you also want to make sure that we're finding out, I mean, are we going to pick on them? No. I mean, the handle is a no-brainer. But when certain things are screwed up and you're paying for them, then they're saying, well, here, we screwed up, but we need more money.
Well, there's got to be parameters.
So, and exactly, so.
But isn't that what the $200,000 in contingency is for, is so that you have some money built into your budget so that you can on the fly adjust to those things? Because like I said, we don't want to stop construction. We know we have two tight timelines we're trying to hit, and they were just trying to react to situations that they were crossing as they came upon. I mean, obviously, like number 3, or 8, I'm not really sure which one it is, about the, they're getting into the ground, they're finding excess moisture down there, and then that's precluding them from doing work. So they need to remediate that first. So you have to react quickly to that in order to be able to do the paving and hit the timelines. Now, I know we're not hitting the timelines, and I know we're short on the paving, but I think that that's, if I'm correct, that's what the $200,000 kind of buffer is in there for. Now, I agree wholeheartedly with what Trustee Troika is saying, can you spend all 200 grand of that if somebody just walks in and says, I'd like to do that? Right, that's, I think, the details that we're saying we need to figure out what is our path forward on that. These issues have already taken place, and we need to fix this, but going forward, right, where's our comfort level?
So a couple of things. So number one, there are some decisions, that's why these really are construction meetings where they're going through the construction, that there are some things that can't wait that they have to do on site. So something that may cost $1,000 that day, if you wait 2 weeks to bring it to the board, may cost $10,000 because it's the economy of scales as far as what equipment do they have on site. So the decisions that are made through that construction meeting of what do we need to do. The other thing, I think the separate issue then is with some of these is who should be responsible. So I will use an example that hasn't yet come to you, is the restroom facilities. So one of the items you're going to see is there's currently one restroom facility on site. There's still another one that has to be delivered. That the placement of where that restroom facility went is not in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. So now there has to be a sidewalk that has to be modified to be able to access that bathroom. The question that staff asked during that meeting is, who's paying for this? Because that was a design, in my mind, that's a design issue. So that is not, my recommendation to you is that the village should not be paying for a design error that should have been caught by someone who designed that plan. But when we have to move something or move a tree or install something, we have to do it in a short time period, that is something that happens during the construction of a project, and we have to be able to move quickly. The reason this is before you is for the very, very reason that you just articulated. I do not believe that I or any staff or anybody sitting at that table has that authority, which is why we're being transparent. We're bringing as much information to you as possible on these so you can look at these and decide how you want to act on them.
But that's where the project manager comes in, correct me if I'm wrong. And they should have some ability or authority to approve $1,000 this day, this minute, we need it done.
Or emergency situations.
Emergency situations. But I don't think we have those parameters in place.
If I have a comment on that, the contract the construction contract with Integral gives for minor changes that don't change the contract sum, which is the full $2.6 million total, those can be approved by the architect. So those $1,000 things that pop up, whether it's on site or at one of those meetings, the architect, that's in I think section 7 of the contract with the contract.
But it still would be nice to notify whoever is paying that $1,000 before they just say, we need $1,000 for what, we need $1,000. And then we could cut a check and, we're not saying that this is something that shouldn't be paid if there's problems, but notify someone.
Well, we can't have every $1,000 bill come back to the board. I get
They
it.
don't need to come back to the board. If they could come to someone here, they could go to Mr. Baber, they could go to, a group of people, John's out there, Mike's out there, just to justify what they're hitting us up for.
Well, I mean, I think they can come to you, you can disseminate the information, not to give you more work.
And Mayor, what I could suggest is moving forward, since one of the issues is the weather and the winter that's now here, is when this project reassumes in the spring, I would suggest adding an item to the agenda so that every board meeting, we can update you as to what are the issues or what are we seeing in the field as construction continues on, probably in April, I think is when we're looking at the next continuation.
And they're also not working out there right now, so the need to approve the $25,000 because there's moisture in the ground. We're going to have moisture in the ground until next spring, after it's done rain.
I do think I will defer to Dr. Scott, but I think that there was some cost incurred at this point on the weatherization or winterization.
Yeah, it's my understanding that there was kind of a twofold.
Is that number 8?
Yes.
Because we're not, I mean, we're still on 1, 2, and 3,
Okay.
so.
Right. We're just kind of dancing
No, I know,
around because
but-
we're going to talk about just a heads up to us. That's all I'm looking for. Give me a heads up, not 2 days before or 3 days before.
Yeah, I agree with that, but I mean, let's not discuss 8 until we get to it. Perfect.
I think the other thing to just keep in mind too is as these change orders come, these are not large ones, but obviously when Anne Marie and I spoke about this, it was a situation where we said, obviously we want to make sure that you're aware of what these change orders are requesting, what's going on. There are times, and this would be one of those situations where I would say that the village should approve payment of these. And then if you determine that someone else should be responsible, or you don't have if you don't have a decision as to right now as to who do we think is responsible, that can be addressed down the road. I mean, there's still contingency money and things like that. Because one of the things you don't want to run into, say if these change orders are a little bit higher, and this contractor actually had the work done right. They had the handrails installed, they did all this stuff, and this board decided, you know what, we don't think we're responsible, so we're not going to pay this. Now what happens is these subcontractors walk off the job. They haven't been paid, and you're just going to hold off the project because of the fact that you want to be able to be able to address this at some point down the road. So in this situation, because of these amounts, I mean, I would recommend paying them and then getting to the bottom of whether or not you believe that these are the village's responsibility or someone else's responsibility.
Well, I think I said that earlier. Notate them, make sure that we have them well put in our mind so that at the later time we can do that. And just to lead off something you had said, I do not want to not pay a vendor.
Exactly.
Absolutely not. And I don't want to delay this project. But, you know, just on the record, but we want to make sure it's transparent to everybody.
Right, and just let us know. I'm not saying don't do it if it needs to be done. Go ahead and do it, but tell us before it's pretty much already done.
Right, I think also we need to make sure that if there, and there will be these types of things over, like you said, I understand about construction items that we're doing, is that we do note those items that we think might be, you know, right, we might want to challenge at some future point, and we make sure that none of those exceed our holdback at the end, so that we have some leverage at the end. I know we always have like 10% at the end, and we slowly, you know, release that, but we want to make sure that anything we have in our potential challenge bucket does not weigh our holdback. So.
Well, I agree, because, well, I would like to challenge number 2, even though we'll pay it, because, you know, the last board meeting, we paid, what, 6,000 something for observation fees. I mean, so it's, you know, I think we have to question that at a later point in time.
Okay, so just to clarify, what are we voting on again?
1, 2, 3.
For meeting 1, 2, and 3.
1, 2, 3, and the total amount of $18,161.
And if we feel that any of these are something that should be gone after, then we should start keeping track of it here, because I'd like to know at the end of the day, how much did you spend over with mistakes?
Yeah, we all do.
So,
Do we have all the documentation for 1, 2, and 3 if required?
The waivers,
Yeah.
we have the copies of 1 and 2. We do not have 3 yet, but we are going to get the originals for 1, 2, and 3.
We're confident we'll get those.
We will get them,
we
yes.
have to have when the check doesn't go.
Well, everybody's to check this.
Well, we won't, so if we approve it, we won't release that check until.
Not until we have.
Oh, that's what my question was.
Any other questions on it? Okay, so now we're going into,
Yeah.
no, and then going to 8. All right, now please call the roll on 1, 2, and 3.
Trustee Gray?
Aye.
Trustee Cabrio?
Aye.
Trustee Suisse?
Aye.
Trustee Lancy-Trade?
Aye.
Okay. Okay. Is there a motion to direct Integral Construction to proceed with time and materials not to exceed $25,000 to fulfill change order number 8?
I so move.
I'll second.
All right, well, here's the only thing that if they're having a problem with moisture and that's what they're trying to fix, they're not really working on it, so it's something that we want to pay them for.
At today's meeting, like I said, we did have some discussions regarding numbers 1, 2, and 3, and then of course number 8. What number 8 was for is kind of a twofold thing. First, part of the funding or part of the change order was for undercuts for parts of the bike trail and then portions of the tennis court and possibly the pickleball court as well. And what then happens is you don't know until you start excavating and you start, getting down to, the base. You do at times come across soil that is poor soils. It's not, the clay is not strong enough to support the bike trail. So what you end up doing is you excavate out a certain portion of that and you put in a heavier stone and then kind of work your way up. And basically, so you're bridging over those soft areas. And that's typically, you will have that in various projects. It doesn't always happen, but fairly often it does happen. We've had it happen on the roadway here and the bike trail over here as well on phase 1 of the project. So that work has already been done, and I believe that was approximately about $11,500 was spent on that work. I believe some of the other work was related to, because by the time they got to the point where they were getting close to paving, we were getting more rain. It was saturating some of the tennis courts and the pickleball court. So what the rest of that stone or funding was potentially going to be for is to excavate out some of those wet areas that had, that were saturated from the rain, put in stone so that they can get it paved this year. Obviously, the paving didn't take place this year. The paving plants are, at this point, they're closed or just about to close, so nothing is going to take place. So on the remaining portion of that, I would certainly recommend that we can hold off until next year in the spring, take a look at those areas once we get to a point where construction can begin again. If those areas are able to dry out, then we might not need to do any additional work. They might be able to be strong enough where they can just pave at that point.
Well, then, this is a little confusing in here, then, because if we approve the request on a basis of time and materials not to exceed $25,000, a request for proposals has not been submitted for the change order, therefore an exact price is unknown. According to TRIA, less than half of the work has been completed due to weather issues. So we should pay a lot less than half of this. If they say they completed half of the work or less than half of the work and they don't know the exact amount. It's just not to exceed.
Yeah, well, at today's meeting, like I said, when I asked, how much of that has been completed, it was about $11,500.
And the wording of that 25,000 is just based on what the initial request from Integral was to TRIA. That was the time material to exceed 25,000. Obviously, that's changed due to the weather, but that's why that is the language that you see in that.
Well, see, what concerns me though, well, it says TRIA approved the request not to exceed 25,000. Does that I mean, that has to come, well, it is coming to the board, but what authority and what price range or level do they have? I mean, it seems like, oh, okay, I can approve 10,000, 5,000. We don't know that either, do we?
So if I can jump in, you said that we've already spent about $11,500 of that $25,000, is that correct?
Correct, that's what we were
So
informed today.
in work that as they were going along and excavating, while weather was still nice, they came across these issues and they just took it, they not took it upon themselves, but they just went ahead and remediated them and just kept going, and they asked TRIA to keep track of that, approve that on a time and materials basis. So of the $25,000 that we're being asked to approve as a ceiling, 11,500 is already spent under change order number 8 that doesn't exist yet. I know that the RP does not exist. and you're saying that basically they're shut down, so the other 14, 13.5, while if we approve this, it would be available to them, but right now, can we just say that they're done for the season, submit RFP 08 in for 11.5 for us to consider paying that, and then we'll revisit the rest of it next year, like you said, once it might be a moot point.
That's something that can certainly be done.
And what I would recommend is that we're using the approximation, but let's say it's $11,900.
Right, whatever the amount is, right,
Yeah.
but let's get an RFP like we have here for whatever the current amount is that has already been spent, like we've just discerned on 1, 2, and 3. These are monies that have already been spent, and now we're just trying to play a little catch-up.
Yeah.
We're gonna have our act together a little bit better in the spring, and there won't be any money authorized at that point. We will be starting fresh.
And what I would suggest is if you go down that path, I know you already had the motion, but make it very clear that it's based on the documentation that we received verifying the exact amount.
Yes.
It's their motion, so.
Well, quite frankly, you could actually withdraw the motion. I think you got direction, staff has direction as to which way you want to go. That you don't need to direct them to spend any money on this. You're directing them to get you a change order, provide you with a change order for the work that's been done.
Right,
And don't do any more work related to this.
Right, and I just want to be clear, what I'm saying is that I'm okay with paying the money that we have already spent, you know, but we need the documentation that backs it up, and so we can approve that, so.
Agreed. So I can rescind my motion. Yeah. I would prefer to rescind my motion.
Withdraw.
Or withdraw, sorry.
You would second?
Yes, I do.
Okay, is there any other discussion on that? Madam Clerk, please close withdraw.
Motion to withdraw.
Also, we don't have to do anything on that, sorry, we'll discuss it. Okay. So the next thing is workshop. Open up the workshop for discussion of the Fiddyment Creek Sanitary Sewer for the Blue Property Annexation Agreement terms. You want to fill in on this one?
Sure, I will kick it off, and then I'm going to ask Director Samuels to jump in. So we wanted to have an opportunity to bring this information to the village board, since the village had previously entered into an agreement with Kathy Boo in regards to bringing water and sewer improvements to her property. And we wanted to notify you and the public and the community that those improvements have been made to her property. We will be having a letter authored by the mayor going out tomorrow, just verifying that directly to Kathy Boo. But with more specifics, I'm going to turn it over to Director Samuels to be able to explain what's been done in bringing those improvements to the property.
I've provided an exhibit as part of the supplement sheet, and basically the highlighted portions are the sections that have already been completed. Per the drawing here, what we've done is we've gone from manhole 1A, which is just on the east side of Gauger Road, right across from, well, on the east side of Gauger Road. And then, of course, we've gone south, and basically we've entered into the Forest Preserve property. The sanitary sewer has been extended into Kathy Boo's property on the north side of the creek. We've got, initially, we had permits to auger underneath the creek. However, we've been encountering extremely large rocks, boulders, some of them 2 to 3 feet in diameter. So what we have done is we've applied to the Army Corps of Engineers for new permits to actually open cut through the creek. We are expecting to get that permit probably in the first week of January is what we're doing. And then we can continue that section, basically that kind of open section between where we've gotten into Kathy Boo's property to the other section where we've already installed the sanitary sewer on there. But per the agreement, we've got sanitary sewer to her property. And then, of course, the contractor continued east with that section up to manhole number 12.
Attorney, does that satisfy our agreement? I mean, it's, if I'm getting that correctly, it's there, but it's not functioning?
Well, I mean, anything can tie onto this. There's obviously, we have that gap to finish, and then of course, we're waiting for a metering manhole that Lockport had required. That'll be installed probably first, second week in January.
Is that the fiberglass one that we're waiting for? Is that the one that we're waiting for the?
Yes, yes.
I think we're in good shape with the agreement. We're in a situation, the agreement was general enough that the sewer improvements had to be constructed by sometime in December. It was like as per the agreement. And at this point, the sewer improvements have been constructed. They are at her property. And at this point, the letter that the mayor is getting out actually says, now we want to sit down and talk to you about sewer hookups. Because at this point, there's nothing.
We don't know.
They don't know. We don't know the intention, where we want sewer hookups, those kinds of things. So the property owner is in a position right now to hook onto the sewer anyway. But we've met our obligations under the agreement. So and that's the key.
And I've talked to her, told her exactly what's going on, told her that we wouldn't have it until the first or second week of January. She's absolutely fine with it. She can't do anything right now either because we're not ready. The deal's still not solid on the sale because they were trying to get IDOT to give them a cut in, and that's not happening yet. So I called up Kathy and talked to her and her husband and filled in where they're at, and I said as long as it's done, we're fine. So we drafted a letter that will be given to her tomorrow, and like I said, I talked to her twice today. So everything's good. So anything else on the sewer end of it?
No.
Okay. Second one, discussion regarding a proposed intergovernmental agreement between the Village of Homer and Homer Township for the co-sponsorship of the 2019 Homer Community Festival. I would like to take it off right now. I had time to talk to Pam for a little bit today to get this dialed in, but she had to go into some meetings, and when she got out, I had to. So we already decided we'll talk tomorrow because we didn't know what time this was going to be done tonight. So that will work out. We just have to tweak it a little bit.
What will work?
The agreement for the intergovernmental agreement. They're not, as it stands right now, we're going to be talking to Pam, and they would be a sponsor, not a co-sponsor. They would be a sponsor. We will be in control of it, but we still need an intergovernmental agreement for us to use the property, and they still have some employees from the township that are involved with the festival committee, so we want to make sure they're covered. And if everything goes good, I'll have it finished.
Can I just add one thing to that? Sure. I think it's important for the record that we understand that the IGA is strictly going to cover what I call property, equipment, and people from the township's perspective of whatever we may use that they have that they need to.
We're in control of the...
Yeah. So from an administrative purposes, though, the IGA will not include operational or financial administration. That will be solely on the village.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that was...
Signing contracts.
Yes. Yeah. And it's probably important to note at some point when we do have this full discussion that we have to understand the cost ramifications, the budget, the receivables that would come in to cover that budget, and all the trustees, well, not the majority of the trustees need to be comfortable that we're going to have full exposure to the 2019 festival, but we'll also reap full benefit to the 2019 festival. I just want to be on record and making sure I stay
Glad you did that.
Yeah, I want to reiterate that it will be all on us. We have been given a layout of the budget, and those numbers are a little weird because it's a weird venture because the beer vendor, we only pay for beer if we sell it. If we have a 4-day rain out, we don't sell any beer, we don't buy any beer. So that liability really is not there. If you pull the plug the day before, though, the tents are already up, the chairs are there, we are going to be paying for those things. So that's why those numbers are a little bit odd. Certain things we cannot claw back if we were to cancel or have a 4-day rain out. Other things would never come to fruition. But certain things, and when we voted on our October 10th minutes at the beginning of this, there was a portion in that that said, it referred to the Ace Pyro contract for the fireworks. And we were trying to get ahead of that to lock up that date, and that was back in October when we were trying to lock up the date for the Ace Pyro as well as the carnival. And the motion at the October 10th meeting said we were only going to approve that if the township had approved their portion of their 25% at their October 12th meeting, I believe it was, or October 15th meeting, and that did not happen. So right now, I'd like to know where we're at with our Ace Pyro contract. We probably have not let that or requested or locked up that date. We've not changed any monies, I know.
Have you guys,
We haven't done anything with it as a committee.
I thought you had until January, February.
Yeah, we,
There's
there's
a
a
time to
time.
lock up the date, and we can't really tell them for certain that we are locking up the date if we don't have buy-in that we're going to take it over, or that we're going to be, or that, you know, like I said, that the board understands that we might be flying without a net until we solidify that we're all on board with paying for this thing. So.
Yeah, and just to, not to belabor this whole point, but to move it back a little bit, and I completely agree with Trustee Gray with the minutes. You know, we had a FEST meeting where we don't make decisions and we do not make motions to approve things, but we were asked at one meeting a few months back about the IGA and how we would conduct that business, and so we all just did a consensus that we probably would go with no IGA as it relates to administration. But with that said, and the Ace Pyro thing in play, and you know, me making the motion, I just want everyone to understand that that October 15th meeting, we had at that time thought there was going to be a decision made, but really they only brought it for discussion at the township level. I didn't know that that was going to transpire that way. So in reality, it never was there for a motion to begin with, but I was, at that point in time, I was led to believe it would be. So with that said, we are moving forward as long as I have, you know, some consensus with hiring bands and things of that nature at this point, because we can't wait much longer as we're approaching year end and the fest is 6 months away. Bands book years in advance at times, and so some of the bands I'm looking at may not be available, so I want to make sure that I'm going to proceed. We will not be in any contract with the bands until we countersign them. So really, they're just out there, so I have dates locked up, and then when we countersign them, that's when they actually go into effect. So,
Yeah, I would like to move toward having an action item on our December 12th,
yeah.
where we vote to approve whatever, you know, the township puts forth. If they want to just be a sponsor, like we have sponsors right now, Meyer, things like that, they sponsor tents and stages and things like that. If that's their involvement, that's great, but I'd like to have an action item for our board to move on, at least getting behind the fact that we are taking over ownership, exposure, responsibility for this, and that the whole board is comfortable with that, and we lock that in so that Trustee Caprio and I can be doing certain things, as well as the rest of the committee, you know, trying to talk to vendors and ads, things of that nature. So.
Well, like I said, I'll see if I can knock this thing up tomorrow. I tried getting it done today, but just not enough time today.
Yeah, I think we're good for December. I agree. That'd be a good time with that.
And you're good with the fireworks contract, that you're not going to lose that date if this thing is signed?
I'm not positive. I think I'll have to look into that tomorrow. I don't think so.
John Robinson might not know. Were you with Commissioner DeVivo when talking about Ace Pyro or not?
We could look at the contract.
I mean, we talked about it briefly, but they didn't, they talked about the date. He said that the date was still available at that point, but they were waiting for, you know, decisions to be made, so.
Well, the only decision that we have right now is for the township. And I think that they'll help us with it, they just don't want to be a part of it.
Well, the bigger decision is the trustees all agreeing that we're right at the exposure. And once we got that okay, then we're full steam ahead.
Well, can they take a consensus thing we had over here tonight for discussion, so this way if they need to speed something up, they can?
I don't think I think December 12th is fine.
Yeah.
Unless Anne Marie calls me tomorrow and says that Ace Pyro was last month, then we're done.
Well, I think we need to understand it, like if it's going to be on an action item in December, I think it still has to be the action item and a little bit input, like if Sue was going to give us like a workshop, I think we still need to have a base, even though so we all understand
Well,
it.
can't we have it for discussion and action?
Yes, well, it doesn't have to be a workshop, just in-depth discussion.
I agree, because there's two people missing that aren't here anymore.
Okay.
I believe, I mean, what I hear you saying is, number one, have a discussion item, but number two, you want an action item confirming the full support of the board to move forward with the fest, having the township as a sponsor and not,
25%.
yes, yes.
Well, that's not full support, but the majority.
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Okay,
And
somebody must have
we'll provide detailed information because I know the committee has been working on a draft budget, so we just had the discussion on active core. That's something that the full board may want to have or may have a comment, because if you're going full in on the fest, you'll want to know all the expenditures that are going to be associated with it.
Yeah, I want to make sure that that's part of that whole.
Yes, we'll have that part of the packet.
For the December 12th meeting,
For the December 12th meeting, correct?
which is my birthday. Just wanted to make note.
So you won't.
Actually, it's all of December. She keeps.
Okay, any other discussion on that? Is there any old business? Is there any new business?
Yes, Mayor, as I mentioned in my opening comments, I wanted to ask for the board's consensus about setting up a winter coat donation drop box in Village Hall. Trying to reach out to Salvation Army and do this in conjunction with them, and it will be for a defined period of time. I'm not really sure what their typical defined period of time is, if it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something of that nature.
Don't we already have a place that we're bringing the coats in?
You right now for
It's Jewel right now, right?
Jewel is a place where you can do it for the Chicago Bears thing, but I just want to try and, since we only have one Jewel in the village, obviously, to give another place for drop-offs and to promote it on our website and our Facebook page, that we would be offering up the Village Hall as a donation drop-off place.
I think it's a great idea.
I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
Aye.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.